Some pretty stark figures laid out today as the Bank of England and the government both look ahead to what life could be like after Brexit. Well, I'm joined now by the Labour MP, Catherine McKinnell, a former shadow Treasury Minister and member of the Treasury Select Committee, Conservative MP Andrea Jenkins, who's a member of the Brexit Select Committee, and the SNP's Treasury spokesperson, Alison Thewlis. Thank you all very much indeed for being with us. Some bright spark has noticed you're all wearing your party colours. Well done, very well coordinated. Thank you very much. Now, Catherine McKinnell, let's come to you first. We've seen these very dire predictions. Is it Project Fear or is it actually a sensible forecast?
Well, I think it's Project Reality, and the Chancellor confirmed this morning, quite alarmingly, that under any Brexit scenario, we are going to be worse off as a country and for many years to come. And I think it's the only time I can think of, and possibly anyone can think of, where the government's actively pursuing a policy that is going to make us and our constituents and our families poorer. And there are regions of the country that are going to be affected much harder than others, my region of the North East being one of them.
Andrea Jenkins, the government has got this wrong before, haven't they? They predicted Armageddon if we voted leave in the first place, and the economy seems to be doing OK.
I completely agree with that statement, and also remember they failed to predict the financial crash. This is clearly just doom-mongering by the Treasury and the Chancellor, and I, for one, have got more faith in Britain and the British people, and I think we can't have another rerun of the referendum, the doom-mongering. Let's just get on with the job, what we've got tasked to do.
Alison Thewlis, the Prime Minister up in Scotland today, selling her deal to the public. We all need to be a bit more optimistic, don't we?
I think the Chancellor's been completely honest this morning that it is going to be a disaster regardless of which Brexit scenario that they pick. All of this will be particularly bad for Scotland. My constituents would see themselves being £1,600 per head worse off under these scenarios. So there's nothing that the Prime Minister can do to sell this deal no matter where she goes. In Scotland, overwhelmingly 62% voted to remain, so she'll find it a particularly hard deal in Scotland.
Yeah, well, but the Prime Minister is saying today that actually the deal's a good one for Scotland. Free trade area, no tariffs, no fees. Scotland's interests have been taken into account, she says.
Scotland's interests have been completely ignored all the way through this process. The First Minister has been ignored, and the option that the SNP have put forward as a compromise of staying within the single market and the customs union, which is not as bad as Brexit, but certainly a good deal, better than the terrible deal she's proposing, has been completely ignored. And it is the sensible option that would, I'm sure, get the support of MPs across the House.
But, sorry, I think the big issue with the premise that you make there, though, is that the government cannot guarantee any of those things. This agreement that we are being asked to vote for, that we know will make our constituents poorer, is actually an agreement to leave the European Union. In terms of what the forward relationship is going to be, it's a very vague declaration that has no legal binding power whatsoever. So we don't actually know whether there will be this frictionless trade. We don't know whether there will be all of the, which is why all the economic projections have to be so variable, because it has to forecast every possible outcome that may come once we vote through, and I will not vote it through, this withdrawal agreement that we're being presented with. So, this is a blind Brexit. We're being asked to vote completely blind on what the future will look like.
Yeah, but in any divorce, there's got to be compromise, hasn't there, on both sides? No one's ever happy in a divorce that they got everything they want. That's the situation here.
I mean, I think it should be more accurately termed a Remain agreement, actually. But what I'm hearing from two panellists, with respect, and what we're hearing from the Treasury really is just a rerun of the referendum argument. And people voted. I'm a Democrat. I trust the British people, so we should just get on and deliver what the British people voted for. We shouldn't be talking about this now. We should just be getting on and delivering.
No, but the problem is we're all debating what we think the British people voted for, and Theresa May suggests that this agreement is what the British people voted for. Andrea doesn't think it's what the British people voted for, and nor does Alison. But the point is, how do we actually find out what it is that the British people voted for? We go back and ask them. We present this a deal that the Theresa May has arrived at, and we ask the people whether they accept it or not. And the choice has to be, do you accept this Brexit that has been negotiated by the government, or do you want to stay on our current terms which is remain in the European Union. And that's a clear choice and a clear mandate that we can get from the British people.
Well, we can see Theresa May now in Scotland today visiting a local business. Alison Thewlis, do you think that a people's vote is the solution out of this?
I think it's a solution out of this, certainly. And as I said before, Scotland was perfectly clear that we voted to remain, but I can see why the prospectus that Catherine puts forward is appealing there, because there are all ranges of reasons why people voted the way that they did. People believed various different promises that they were given, whether they were written on the side of the bus or presented by people who have now resigned. All of these things were put before the people, and we don't know exactly what people were expecting out of this deal, but they certainly were not voting to be worse off at the end of the day, and that is exactly what's going to happen with this deal.
Well, I trust the British people. Let's not forget that the government at the time, my government, spent £9 million putting this project fee leaflet through every household, yet the British people still voted to leave. We must honour what the British people want.
Yeah, but the Brexit campaign wasn't without its project fear either, was it? The bus, the famous 350 million for the NHS?
Well, no, we've got money going into the NHS, to be fair.
But I guess what we've seen today from the economic projections is that we will be poorer under every Brexit scenario. That's less money for our hospitals, less money for our NHS, less money for our schools, less money for our public services.
You know, forecasts are not facts.
But
how many times have the Bank of England got it wrong? I mean, even Mervyn King has said we're better going for a hard Brexit than pursuing the PM's deal. You know, that's the former governor of the Bank of England.
People have also said we'd be better off staying in the European Union than going for this withdrawal agreement, because it effectively, as you said, retains a lot of the benefits of being in the European Union, but without actually having a say on any of those rules. And I think that's what Brexiteers like Andrea find very difficult to live with, but also people who I speak to who wonder, why are we doing this at all?
All right, let me put this question to you then. Yeah. On the 11th of December, the vote will take place in Parliament. Do you think what has happened today, these dire predictions, are going to make any MPs think again who are going to vote against Theresa May's deal, who are now thinking, well, actually, maybe this argument pushes me more towards voting with her?
I think a lot of MPs have already made up their minds how they're going to vote on this issue, and I don't think it will make a huge bit of difference here. But what is absolutely clear is that the Prime Minister is trying to present this as her deal or no deal, and that is a completely false choice, because I believe that there are better deals that could be had. There is certainly a better option that could be had, the customs union and the single market. And as I said, I think that will have a majority throughout the House. So there needs to be an option through this process for MPs to say, actually, this is a false choice. We want neither of these things, because both of them are damaging and both of them are not as good as staying within the EU.
Both agree?
Absolutely. I think, funnily enough, I think we do all agree on that this is a false prospectus. And I think we're being threatened, really, with this idea of a no deal that would be catastrophic. But also every other Brexit option that's been offered to us also makes us poorer. So, as MPs, we're elected to act in the national interest, but with a specific care for our constituents. Right. And none of our constituents voted for us to make them poorer, or to make our families poorer, or indeed to make our children pay the price for this decision for many years to come.
Well, I for one believe in our country and our workers out there, our businesses out there.
Go back and ask them. Go back and ask them.
I do.
If you have faith in them, go back and ask them.
Right, so
you should
let's not forget,
we
have not used our strongest cards. There's a £67 billion trade deficit with the EU. They need us. We shouldn't have promised the £39 billion without seeing the scope of a deal. It has been a car crash the last 2 years, but the fact is there is a better deal that we could have. Yet we'll all disagree on what that could look like.
But the EU said there is no better deal. They've said there is nothing else.
They would say that because they've got everything they want. They've got everything they want. We'll be a rule taker. We'll still be subject to the ECJ. They'll tell us how to make our products, and it makes it difficult to do free trade deals with other countries. Hallelujah, they've got what they want, and it's not what the British people want.
Okay, so what's your prediction then for if this vote goes against the Prime Minister? What's going to happen next?
I don't think anybody can really tell you what will happen next after that, that's for sure, because what the Prime Minister has to take into account is the will of the House on this, that her deal has if that comes to pass, has not been acceptable to the majority of MPs. And it's clear that from us here today, from other MPs within the House, to the DUP, to everybody else, it's just not acceptable to anybody other than the most loyalist of loyal Tory backbenchers. So I think we need to look at this seriously. We need to come up with an option that satisfies the needs of our constituents, also satisfies the will of the House, and to say that that we stay in the single markets, to say that we stay in the customs union is also the easiest way out of this for everybody. It will solve a lot of the issues for Northern Ireland as well. It will continue to allow us to let us trade and to have the access that we need to the EU. It will stop putting barriers in people's path.
That's not going to happen, hasn't she? That's a red line.
But I think, we can talk in hypotheticals and we can talk in, possible deals that may or may not be available. But, the clock is ticking on this, and Theresa May has spent 2 years negotiating this deal, which is why I feel very strongly that the only way to actually know if this is actually the will of the British people is if we go back and ask them. And we have a Brexit. This is Brexit. It's been presented to us. And as much as whether you like it or you don't, it is a Brexit deal. And therefore, it's time to put it back to the British people in a people's vote.
Final thought?
The only people who want a second referendum is those who voted Remain. It is a sore loser's vote, and I'll fight to ensure that does not happen.
OK. Catherine McKinnell, Andrea Jenkins, Alison Thewlis, thank you all very much indeed. Good to see you this evening.